I am trying to hold my shit together to sit next to these people. I saw this film 24 years ago. We're here to talk about the movie Slam, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary from premiering at Sundance. And this is an opportunity to talk about narrative change in a real way, how a narrative can change someone's life. I think our previous two panels really set us up well for this, because we started about talking about how we can do all the blaming of technology we want, but it's us. We build it, we use it, we decide, right? And there's a lot more different ways to think about what technology is and what innovation looks and feels like. And I think we're gonna have an amazing opportunity to reflect on it with some distance and some experience today. So I'd love to start by just having the panelists introduce themselves, although some people probably don't need introduction. And then we're going to kick off the conversation a little bit about why you started with this film all those years ago. So Marc, if you would kick us off.
Sure thing. Marc Levin, director.
Sonja Sohn, actor.
Momolu Stewart, actor.
Saul Williams, actor.
So I want to start off with why did you set out to make this film? What went into this film?
Well, that's going to take us most of the day. But I'll say two things, because I was just joking with Momolu that he's dressed for Cannes, but he's at Sundance. I would lend him my boots. I was at Cannes on another project, which we were playing the game, get a star, see if you get some foreign sales, the way it's normally done. And my two partners went and saw Trainspotting, and were so inspired by it, I couldn't get up in time to see the 9 a.m. show. They said, we've got to do something our way that only we could do, that nobody else could do. What do you got? And I had just seen Saul Williams at a slam that Bob Holman, who's sitting right there, was emceeing at the New Eurekan Cafe. It was a grand slam, and Saul went on to win. I'd never seen Saul before, and I was absolutely blown away by his spoken word presentation. And I just, as I was walking along the Mediterranean, the French Riviera, of all places, I'm thinking back to Saul Williams. And I had just finished a documentary in the DC jail, which is where I met Momolu Stewart when he was 16 years old, and he was facing a potential life behind bars. And it just came to me there, of all crazy places, what if we did a story about a young rapper like Momolu, who somehow gets thrown into the, as Momolu says, the injustice system, our dysfunctional criminal justice system, on just a bullshit, marijuana charge. Marijuana is now legal in Washington, D.C., but then it wasn't. And somehow finds his voice as an artist in that situation. And that was it. And I just said slam, thinking of the slams that Bob was running down at the New Eurekan Cafe. That was how it was born. And then a few weeks after coming home, I went to SOBs, where they were doing a rap meets poetry, flip the script. Bob and Bones Malone were emceeing that event. And Sonja came on stage and delivered a poem, the poem that's at the end of the film slam. And we all just looked at each other like, wow, was that like written for what we're talking about? And who is this woman? So very shortly afterwards, we introduced ourselves to Saul and Sonja, brought them together, and started workshopping this project. That's how it started.
And for Saul and Sonja, how about for you? What were you bringing into this when it got started?
Wow. When when Marc approached me, it was Marc and Henri. I think you guys were we're like a team at that time, right? Where is he here?
He's out there on the.
Oh, okay. He's such a character. Yeah, But when Marc and Henri approached with the project, it literally, I guess in some ways, it was kind of surreal because I was questioning why I was even pursuing this career. It had come off of my passion for poetry, and I had come into the poetry scene out of Brooklyn College, really just using poetry as a healing tool, like a very, very personal kind of tool for myself. And so when I became an actor, I just couldn't find the sort of. I was wondering if I could plug in all that depth if there was material. If there was material, and I don't want to say worthy enough, but material that was in alignment with what I felt was being channeled through me. And I wasn't finding that alignment, and actually in prayer, like, God, I mean, it just seems like such a vain and vapid business. And not to put, it was a long time ago, I'm not saying that's all the business is, but, I was in that place.
It's not that.
I mean, it has, but it's such a, overly general kind of perspective, but you understand what I'm saying. But anyway, when the project came to me, it was surreal. It was as though the stars had aligned, and it was as though God was saying, "See, this is why I put you here. All this stuff that Susan Batson is putting you through in that acting class."
You studied with Susan Batson?
For 5 years. She beat my tail up.
I studied with Susan Batson.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Well, this was, and now this was in the early 90s. I mean, she basically turned a poet into an actor. I came into her class as a poet, okay, who had done another independent film, like just on the side, and somebody said, I think you got something. And I was like, yeah, that's all right, I'm all right, I'm not doing this. And just kept going. But at any rate, this project showed me that there was purpose in this industry. That there was heart, there was soul, and there was that we could actually, that there was a possibility that, we could have an impact through art and entertainment on the mass scale, not just like that independent, boots on the ground. We were warriors, art warriors, we art revolutionaries. We never wanted to be out here in front. Anyway, let me stop. Go ahead, Saul.
I got it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, I was in my second year of the graduate acting program at NYU. I was an actor who had recently discovered my voice as a poet. And I had an enormous awakening my first year of acting school at NYU through poetry. And it had such a mystical arrival in my life. And the way, in short, for example, my first poetry reading, the first time I read publicly was March 16th, 1995. And I read one poem, Amethyst Rocks, which is in the courtyard scene in Slam. And there was no stage, it was at the Brooklyn Moon Cafe, and someone came up to me and said, "We want you to open up for Allen Ginsberg at NYU." Someone else walked up to me and said, "Sonia Sanchez and Nikki Giovanni are doing something at Medgar Evers College, we want you to open up for them." Someone else came up to me and said, Amiri Baraka is doing something at the Wetlands, we want you to open up. Someone else came up to me and said, Gil Scott Heron and the Roots are doing something at SOBs, we want you to open up for him. Someone else, it was like that. One night, one poem. And so I had been shocked by the arrival of poetry in my life. And it arrived at a moment where I was kind of exiting a depression and asking a lot of questions. I had just begun meditating and all this stuff. So I had a very also personal relationship to poetry. I heard about the thing that dude Bob Holman was doing at the Nuyorican, the slam competitive poetry reading, and I was like, fuck that, there's no competition in this realm. Like, what is that? So I took a year before I even went, only because Jessica and Mums, rest in peace, Mom, my good friends had gone, and they were like, no, you should come, man, it's fun. And so after a year of reading at open mics, I was like, okay, I'll go to a slam. And I went to that slam, and that's the one that I won. And so,
Saul just shows up and wins. That's what Saul does.
but it was, but because the energy on that poetry scene was so vibrant, a lot of people had come to us like, I want to do a movie with you guys. And we were like, this is something really sacred. We had an experience where Reggie Gaines tried to shoot a documentary of us reciting poems, and as soon as we started reciting, all of the power went out and the camera shut down, you know? So we were like, I don't know, man, this is an exorcism. You cannot, this is not for that, you know? But I was in acting school. And so when Marc approached, I at first had like, yeah, whatever. Then he invited me to his offices, and I was like, yeah, okay. And you know, in New York, we recognize real estate. You know, we know what a loft is. Okay, this seems like a real thing. And but still, I wasn't really cool with it because Marc actually approached me to write for the film, not to act. And so I was like, I'm in graduate school for acting. I write on the side, it's a personal thing. I don't know if I have the capacity to write a thing for you. I've never thought about writing for the stage, but I'm prepared to perform, you know? And so, yeah, after that, so Bones, you had planned on having Bones play that role, and you know, I don't know, you know, like crazy shit went down. Bones got locked up, like crazy shit went down. And then gave his word to Marc, and he was like, let the kid do it, the kid.
But
right?
Saul, remember, because this leads us to Momolu. Yeah. You were on our we put Saul on the documentary crew for the HBO documentary we were doing. And I told him yesterday, which was such a crack up, I spoke to the warden, who's retired now, but you know, we would have never been able to shoot this film, obviously, without her cooperation. And and told her we were coming here and everything. She says, whatever happened to that PA on the documentary that ended up doing a poem in the film?
Because, so Marc brought me in to be a PA on the documentary they were shooting in DC jail. That's actually when I met Momolu and saw everybody rapping and was like, yo, these kids are wild. I'll never forget that one because it was on my 25th birthday. And I remember thinking, well, I kind of beat the statistic. You know, I am in prison on my 25th birthday, but unlike my brother here, you know, but this is when we connected at that moment. And you guys even snuck me in a jumpsuit and we're like, we're gonna shoot right here when the warden's away. And so so there was like some weird moments in there. They were trying to do a little sizzle reel or, you know, like to set it up a little bit. This was like a year before we shot. So that went down too. So it was that. And so as a result, and as I was saying to you before we got on stage, and I'll stop, I had the sense that, okay, I will agree to participate in this, but the level of intention that was in the poetry and what we believed we were a part of, you know, in that underground, quote unquote, movement in New York at that time, we were like, we will not allow it to be bastardized by any Hollywood-esque, you know, energy. And so we were very clear on like, well, this will be said. I remember questions of like, but how could your character know this? How could your character say something like this in a poem? And that's where the line was from, you ever listen to Wu-Tang? My character reads comics. My character, you know, like we speak like this in the hood, we know, you know? And so, that was how it started.
Momolu.
Yeah, I want to hear Momolu. What was this journey for you?
So, I know I introduced myself as an actor in the film, but that's not totally honest. So, for me, I was a traumatized youth, hurt trying to find a way to express the pain that I went through in my younger years, and didn't really know how to conceptualize it or how to express myself outside of rapping. And then in those raps, it was just like a lot of anger, right? And it was an epic opportunity when I met, these giants. I still have a letter from you when she wrote me. She said, make sure you. She said, make sure that you keep writing what's on your mind and in your heart, because if not, it'll explode, right? And I was just thinking about that, and now thinking about being here. I can see the divine presence in my journey, My journey is not one that I took alone. My ancestors was with me the whole time. And as you can see, they brought me here. I had 2 life sentences plus 75 years, for a crime that I committed at 16. And, the system, the government, they threw me away. But God had another plan.
Momolu tells his story in the film when he's rapping, because that's the thing, is that where you rap from. He raps from the heart. And I remember the first time I saw Slam, and I had one question. Did that scene make it? Because my only thought was, if that scene makes it, it's over. It's over. I was waiting, seriously waiting for that scene, because I remember the moment. But the thing, like, check the gate, all this shit, But it was like, do we have it? But did you put it in there? That moment, and if you listen back to that moment, he's telling you exactly what happened. The same way in the beautiful video that you performed with yesterday, right, where you tell more of the story, that includes the, your parents and the whole nine. But you tell your story straight up in that film. And that's the sort of intention that's in the film, is that it's real life stories in there, real spirit in there. As we were shooting the film, I don't know if anyone remembers this, but anytime we'd say, okay, we're gonna shoot here, because we shot the film in 9 days. Is that correct, Mark?
It was 9 or 10 days in Washington. Yes.
Yeah. And anytime he'd say, we're gonna shoot here, I'd look down and there'd be a feather. And I had these cargo pants, these army pants, that had 37 feathers in them that I collected over the course of shooting the film. Anytime, we're on the river, he'd be like, shoot. And I'd be like, oh, there's a feather. Okay, I'm supposed to be here. I had amethyst in this pocket, and feathers, 37 feathers in this, but it was all just like, am I in the right place? Are we, it was like that. So anyway, yeah, there's so much spirit in that film. This guy's spirit was what it was all about.
I told Momolu yesterday that I read his autobiography on the plane here, My Journey Home, which is a remarkable story. And going back, Emily, what you were saying earlier, in terms of innovation and in terms of the changing the narrative and the impact narrative can have, this is a living example right here of how even through 22 years, and as Momolu said, 23 years, he was not alone. He has, there's a generation, obviously the crack generation, this so-called super predator generation, menace to society, unredeemable, as you just said, throw away the key. How art, poetry, painting, music can change people's lives in a way that is sometimes unfathomable. And Momolu is a living example, and this film it's fascinating. I mean, Saul really has traveled more places with this film than I have and seen a global reaction. But I just got a call right before I left and picked your book up from an inmate who was at Sing Sing for 17 years. And he told me this story, which totally blew my mind, which was he was a drug dealer at Sing Sing. You know, he was in the game, and he had to go collect some money at the auditorium where the performers at Sing Sing were putting on a play. The play was Slam. They adopted the film as a play in Sing Sing to be performed by the inmates. Well, he was there just to collect money. He had no interest in the theater, and he thought it was professional actors. And then he said, I started recognizing some of these are inmates like me. And then he said, I actually started listening. And by the end of it, he said, I had to find out, how can I become a part of this? So he went to the group Rehabilitation Through the Arts, I think was the name of this nonprofit, and said, how do I join? And they said, well, you have to have a clean record, no tickets, no trouble, for at least a year. And this guy had been dealing drugs and had been busted a number of times in the institution. He said, I stopped dealing drugs, went straight, and he said, a year and a half later, I was the lead in Shakespeare. So you talk about the transformative effect that, and I know Saul has seen it internationally, which I never really did, but these are artists here that what moves me and why I really wanted to come back after 25 years is that this Slam fam that obviously Saul was saying was not going to go just run to Hollywood and say, you know, how do we turn this into, you know, a big super blockbuster. They've stayed true to the mission of being innovators, of being creative, of never falling for, this is the formula, here it is, this is what you need to do, and now you can get the next gig, the next paycheck. And Bob is certainly part of that also. And Momolu has used that creative spirit and voice. You read his book, you listen to his music. So that, to me, is really the living testament to the film, is that the creators of it, because I didn't do it alone, it was a truly collaborative effort. And as we see here, we also worked with other inmates in the prison who really made invaluable contributions in the scene you do in the classroom. You know, I shot 3 motherfuckers and I don't know why. The guy that wrote that, and a bunch of things in that film.
Weren't you actually teaching in the prison?
Yes.
It was something you were actually doing.
Oh, that poetry class in the prison.
Yeah.
No, yeah. At the time, Marc approached me. I was conducting poetry workshops for youth at Rikers Island. So when we sat down and all decided we were going to co-wrote, Marc generously invited us. So ahead of your time in being inclusive, right? Right? How many actors wish they would just stop, you know, draining your ideas and putting their names on it? You know, he knew that he needed us, and he needed our perspective and our voices really to be commended, right?
Truly,
yeah. And so I was just thinking about, you know, where could I pull from for Lauren? You know, Lauren, Lauren Hill, I got that name. But there's a whole history and all kinds of actor stuff that I did. But bringing in that poetry workshop, how we could really pull or just motivate the folks who were in the prison, who were being a part of the film, to also receive something from it. That was I was trying to, like, you know, how can we just holistically make this film, right? Like, and be really organic. This is something that was a passion for me. I believed, as Momolu said, that we, our people, and particularly, you know, there's just so much, you know, toxic. We're holding so much in our bodies, you know, from this, you know, ancestral oppression and whatnot, which, you know, which is a whole nother subject matter. So for me at the time, I had discovered that just becoming vulnerable, whatever process one needs to embrace to get that out of their bodies was really important. And so if I could actually incorporate that within the film, so I could be acting and realizing my dream, I could be engaging with folks, because they're healing me too, right? It was all mutual. That was the whole thing about it. It's such a spiritual film. And folks, I don't know if they really get that, because the story behind it that we were experiencing, those of us who were making the film, we were experiencing vibrations and inspirations, and the words coming out of our mouths. I knew they weren't all mine. When that poster and that scene, like we ran up, we were just being open channels.
I think people got it because the number of people that say, I started writing poetry after that film.
Right.
And if you went to a poetry reading for the next 10 years after that film, you know that they were inspired by something that they had experienced through that film. That workshop in the film works like a real workshop.
Yes.
For the viewer.
Absolutely.
It works like a real workshop. What you touch in The Prisoner, on screen, you touch in the audience member when that line delivery of freedom isn't out there, freedom is in here. Never give anybody the power to take away your freedom. Mm-hmm. Come on now.
Definitely want to add to that. And then a major thing that really touched me about the film was the fact when we won at the festival, when we won. So, like, no matter what I was going through, I was able to see that I was bigger than my situation. I never succumbed to it. At some point, I stopped thinking about being incarcerated, and I started thinking about how could I help people the way that they were, because their lives went on, and they went on to help millions of people. I'm watching the show, seeing you on it, watching it, listening to it, hearing about it. And I was just like, damn, I was that kid in there, as my years was going on, and I always believed that I was a star. And I was like, no matter how much, this world or the society that likes to call itself freedom wants to dim my light, I'ma shine no matter where I'm at, right? And gradually I was able to change who I was, to change my heart, to change the way I felt about the things that I went through in my life. And I started to use those lessons to transform other people's lives, because I know they say hurt people, but hurt people also heal people too, because you only know the lesson that you know is the one that you live. The lesson that you learn is the one that you study. So my life became a study. My life became, like, I started to, like, think about, like, when I'm going to a different penitentiary, it was like, why am I here? Like, what is the lesson that I'm supposed to learn from this institution? When I was in the movie, it was like, why was I in that movie? Why did I meet these people? Like, what is the lesson that I'm supposed to learn from them? And that gave me a lot of hope.
Yeah, when I hear you talk, Momolu, we've discussed this, and it comes back, Emily, to what you brought up. My dream now, 25 years later, is to see this film go on tour in American prisons and jails with ambassadors like Momolu and others who've lived this experience, turned their life around, taking it on a tour. 25 years ago, obviously, we were worried about getting a distribution deal, getting it seen,
Movie things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Harvey Weinstein was
just
up there.
That's why I was laughing. I was like, I remember that meeting.
Yeah. And that, that was, we wanted people to see it. We wanted it to succeed. But now, I mean, sadly, the situation has not changed that much. When we see the film tomorrow, it'll be interesting to see the reaction of the audience. But I did do a sneak preview this summer at the Middlebury Film Festival. I hadn't seen the film in, 20-some years. And I was amazed because none in the audience had seen it. And they couldn't believe it was 25 years ago that it was made. So, and then when I heard that story from Sing Sing, that just convinced me that, to try to find people, and obviously there are a lot of people working in this field, but a way to bring this film to the jails and prisons in the United States with the right ambassadors who've lived it, and that would be a tremendous legacy.
I just want to, because I'm going to try to pull in something that Saul said before we got up here that I'm going to make him repeat for everyone else. What's really striking me is so much conversation happens at this festival about how do we get things seen and how do we have impact. And the tools that are at our fingertips to reach people were not available 25 years ago. And yet you are describing bringing what seem like divine and ancestral inputs and being incredibly present for the situation and each other. And that is work that only artists know how to do. There's no technology that can replicate what you're describing. And yet, when we think about innovation as changing the way people feel about themselves, the way they feel about each other, the way they feel about our future, you were innovating from before the whole thing came together. And so, Saul, you had a really interesting reflection about
I know what
that.
you're talking about. Look, I just want to be really clear on the fact, and I said it because I loved what you said. You said we want to distinguish innovation from the technology discussion.
That's right.
And I think that's important because we are the technology.
That's right.
Right? And poetry is code. You know? And, you know, like Anisia and I did a film that was here last year called Neptune Frost, where we looked at the drum as the first form of wireless communication. So that when we look at modern devices, as long as they are dependent on those unnamed workforces in the Congo, as long as they are dependent on all of these resources, I'm not impressed with that as technology. Because technology is supposed to move us forward, not continue some sort of analog exploitation that has gone on ever since. And so the technology that we represent through poetry, through coding, language, it can be ignored, it can be slept on, it can be renamed slam, it can be renamed spoken word, you can call it whatever the fuck you want. But I promise you, the poets are here, and what we did, Sonja, and when I say we, I mean, the reason why this film worked the way it did is because the poetry community is in this film. There's so many extraordinary poets that are, whether they're in the background, whether in the audience, they're in this film. They supported us. It wasn't the sort of thing where the poetry community said, the real shit is da da. We went in there representing the real shit, and then Momolu came there for the motherfuckers who would never go to a poetry reading because it sounded too whatever, but they heard Momolu and were like, oh, this is the real shit. You know? You grounded us in that, right? And that technology of connection, of how to connect, right? Like I said, there are literally thousands of people across the world who say, I began writing poetry when I saw that film. They may even laugh about it now, like, yeah, I did about 5 years on the poetry slam circuit before I became a teacher, before I became this, before I went in this direction. But it wasn't about them remaining in that zone for the rest of their lives. It was about providing a tool that would help them express themselves and find a way to their truest selves. That's what this film represents. That's what poetry represents. That's what Momolu, Sonja, Marc's work. Because for Marc, it's not just about slam. Every single one of his films is dedicated to the destruction of this motherfucking system. And the Marxist ideology that raised him is, you know, it seeps through the motherfucking work. Am I wrong? So it's just important to realize that there is always, and like I said, I was in acting school. The dream was fucking Hollywood. But not fitting in, saying, no, art is powerful. Art can mean something. Art can change lives. Art can progress society. Art can uplift society. Art can free fucking life sentences. Art, yes, the lawyers play their role. Yes, the activists play their role. Yes, we all play our role. The school teachers, everybody has to play their role. Art is to remind you of the purpose of playing that role.
Lay it down, bro.
Fuck y'all.
Is that it? Is that
For those of you at home, we're all going to need a minute. We didn't supply y'all with tissues, but I'll make sure we hand some out. Fuck, Saul. Jesus.
In that spirit, you know, they say that energy, emotion is energy in motion. But when you speaking from your heart, then you reach the heart of the people. And that's what poetry is about. Like, I don't even want to have a song if it doesn't make me cry first, right? Because I know, like, if it makes me cry, then I know it's touching the core part of me. And that's what you just did. You know, everything that you said, everybody was able to relate to it because everyone is feeling the same thing, you know, that spirit. And most importantly, I just want to make sure that I say this before I don't get to say it. I just want to say I am truly, truly grateful to my ancestors and to the Creator, which is my first ancestor. I am truly, truly grateful to be a part of this panel, to have everybody here, to even be breathing, because after what I've been through, I didn't even think I was going to see 42. But I'm here, so I'm grateful. Thank you. Thank you.
This is not a panel that can be moderated. That's not what's happening here.
I would be curious. We have just a few minutes left, and I would just be curious to hear, Sonja, you've had a really long and beautiful career. What did you take forward with you that you feel like still defines you today?
Lord, y'all gonna break me down up here. Well, no, I'm actually just truly impacted right now, like in the present. I really needed to hear both of you share. I needed to be a part of this panel today. There's so much to juggle in life, you know, trying to raise a family, keep things going, live your principles, all that. And then, I have had a wonderful career. I'm incredibly blessed, particularly because I've been able to, amidst all of the work, I have been offered the opportunity to be a part of other projects that fell in line principally behind SLAM, such as The Wire, and roles that, even if the subject matter isn't the same, but roles that offer me an ability to hold a space that I feel is spiritual in nature and allows whatever is meant to come through me to come through in alignment. I think it has been very difficult to hold on to this because every time I go to a set, I'm looking for this. And I have found this only, I believe, with the Wire family. And that connection, like this connection, seems to last and go on because I think we're bonded through more than simply the art, but we're bonded through intention. We all came into this business not simply to do the jobs that we do. Everyone I worked with directly and intimately on both of these projects, our intention was to channel something different into this world. We understood what we were, that we were technology, that we were tools. and sometimes not always understanding it. And everyone has different processes for doing this work, so I don't want to overlay that. But yeah, over the years, it's been really, really challenging to bring this in, because there's a vulnerability that I bring to sets that gets run over as soon as I show up. And it's like, oh, you want to be too... that bond and that connection, if I can connect to you, and if we can connect through our characters, through our discussion of the work, but if we can find some sense of connection somewhere, then it infuses the work in ways that you can't quantify and you can't put into words. And we live in an age right now where boundaries, everyone's walking around in boxes, but yet we're still compassionate. I don't know, this hypocrisy is driving me crazy. I'm just saying that, there's something about the way we worked and our intention that allowed us to create work that I believe truly changed the world. So, it's what I haven't been able to bring and cultivate throughout my career. That's been, I think, a source of disappointment for me, that this didn't continue. Because that conversation with God continued every time I got to a set and was like, wait a minute, but I thought we were doing this. Wait a minute, I know I got to put these kids through school, but we were doing this. I want to do, you know what I mean? But, luckily, I've had more projects that sort of support my principles than not in some way. So I've been fortunate. And thank you all from just the bottom of my soul.
Thank you, Sonja. I just want to add something on a lighter note, because this has been incredibly emotional and beautiful, really. This is incredibly special, and this team here is. But none of this would have happened, and just to kind of contextualize it with what we face today, the madness that we're seeing today. Back in 1997, when we shot this film, the summer of 1997, we were seeing some craziness then in Washington, D.C. And it's crazy how that opened. You hear Saul say, there's got to be a magic door when he's trying to figure out how he gets out of this situation he's caught in. And the magic door, at that moment, it was from the most unexpected direction, because the Republicans at that time, under Newt Gingrich, basically were trying the same shit that's happening right now. We're going to defund the government. We're going to stop. And in doing that, they defunded the Department of Corrections in Washington, D.C., which, because it's not a state, it gets its money from Congress. And I happened to be sitting in the office of the director of the Department of Corrections, a woman who was known as a total hard ass, Margaret Moore, a Republican, no bullshit. And the TV was on in her office, and I had gone in prepared, about insurance. We don't have insurance, and we're going to bring in 4 or 5 actors, and we're talking with people that have been charged with, murder and, all the questions that were going to come up, and how are you going to deal with it? And she got so incensed that Newt Gingrich was on TV, and Newt Gingrich was upset that Washington, D.C. had reelected Marion Barry, who had been busted for crack and then come back. He was so outraged that the city citizens had reelected a man who had busted for crack, that they were going to defund the Department of Corrections. And she turned the TV off right then, and she said to me, "How much can you get done in 10 days?" That's how it happened. So who would have thought that's how the magic
Barry
door...
is in the film.
Marion Barry, rest in peace. He just passed away a few weeks ago.
Oh,
wow. So that's, I feel like...
A few weeks ago.
I feel like there have been maybe 5 or 6 examples of something my dad likes to say, which is that you know what you do, but you don't know what you do does. And that goes for Newt Gingrich, and it goes for the Department of Corrections, and it goes for Momolu writing your words and reading the letters and being a part of this, and Saul and Sonja, I don't know, inviting in the divine the moment that you felt like it was striking. We have to wrap up here today, and in part because I don't know if we can take much more of this. But I wanted to invite you, if there's any, we have this moment and this space and this feeling. It's just if there's anything that you wanted to share with this group, with those people, with each other, while we have this moment.
Because you should close. The only thing I'd like to say is we're creating in this moment. I felt it just run right through me, and I think all of you have felt something run through you. And how this moment processes when we leave, I'll never know. But I encourage you to take a moment to sit with this, however, in whatever way serves you. I love these mountains and trees. But I'm in the middle of really doing my own reevaluation. So thank you so much for being here and for being a part of my process and my creativity. So I don't know what's coming out of this, but keep your eyes open. And Momolu, I can't wait to be with you after this. Yeah.
I love Sonja. I was a little kid, and she was laying low, like giving us so much wisdom and information while we was in there, as well as my brother, as well as Marc. I think the last thing that I would say, because this platform is very important, we speak for those people that are serving life sentences that long time ago have transformed their minds, that are doing the work of mentors, that are trying to save young people. We speak for those that don't have a voice, those young people in those communities that are steady suffering from poverty, the 12% of us that's in this country, but almost 25% of us that are in those prisons. The ones that was supposed to have been the war on drugs, it was the war on our community. It should have been a war on injustice. It should be a war on trauma, trying to see how they can fix the trauma, because there's no way in the world that at 6 years old, me watching my mother kill my father, before I even go to prison, before I even reach the 3rd grade, they have all of this information about what's going on with my mind and me suffering from the trauma of that event, and then go to prison, a psychologist tell them I need therapy, and instead of me getting therapy, they release me right back to the same energy, the same neighborhoods that they knew was going to capture my life. However, what they meant for our bad, God meant for our good. So there's always hope. Thank you.
I want to thank you all so much for creating in this space in this way. If you have not seen the film Slam, my guess is you will now. And I want to congratulate all of you on what you built with this and how you've carried it forward. And thank you for what you shared with us today. This is what the fuck we are doing at the Innovators House. Is trying to uncover and trying to find juice for the big, long fights ahead. Marc's career is a testament to just how long you can do stuff, small movements, but not small for certain people. And so I just want to thank the storytellers. Fuck, guys.
I just want to thank the storytellers. Spirit. And what you bring into this world and what you are willing to channel. And I'm so excited for the world to continue to see this work. Thank you all. And now we have to sign off because I can't hold my shit together anymore. Thank you.